Wait,
not the best in the world.
what was that? What was that management training course that you said that you went through?
It was more HR. It was more culture works training. Chris Best, she did some TED Talks. She's out here in Boulder. Uh, that was 5 years ago, six
What
years
and the
ago.
and the owner bought that for you or for everybody?
Yeah, so they brought her in specifically to work with our company to develop culture.
Oh, okay.
And in that process, we learned that you do not develop culture. Culture just is. It's just what's in the air, how it feels, it's a living, breathing thing in your company. And we learned some things that some do's and don'ts for sure. But you can't necessarily control it. Like the culture is the outcome. Like it's
Uh,
what's after what you set in place. And so we started doing once a month company meetings. I was doing team building exercises in the morning once a week. And as we were using the culture tools, it started helping my management, and it really started helping the production like crazy. Because at the time we were working with Brooks, the running company, the shoe company, and Patagonia, and we had 100% fills and deadlines, and it was just really stressed. It was really thick, and we were trying we were just discussing what's the best way to break this negative, nasty, stressful cycle. And so we brought in the Culture Works training, and it opened our eyes up. We brought in a consultant to help us get through that stuff.
So you really focused on like human resources. I mean that
We work
so
with people.
one thing you're saying that shops are definitely missing the ball on is the human research resources, is the culture, is the actual training and management, like whether it's getting away from the shop and taking a class in Sandler training or culture training or whatever that may be. That is and I as a small business, human resources are the first thing a small business owner forgets about, because they're so stuck in the weeds. Okay, so that was problem number one. Problem number two, you said, was training. How from the bottom up, what do you see going wrong in shops with
No one's
training?
training anyone.
No one is training anyone.
No one's training anyone. And what's unfortunate, some of the biggest shops, like the employees are training themselves. And it's like, it's so disorganized. And I'm introducing a lot of training techniques and SOPs and bringing in like stuff like Trainual, where it's accessible to the staff, like they can just search for something on their phone. Um, I made a big pitch. I was like, does anyone know how to use Google? Now you can train to do your own job. You can literally train yourself. I set up Trainual at Cold Cuts in Philadelphia. They have that Saudi LTS, and we wrote an SOP to have their belt catcher, a salesperson, and someone in fulfillment to burn screens on a state-of-the-art laser-to-screen system. The first SOP that we wrote, the instructions took them 30 minutes to figure it out, and we got it down to 7. So they trained themselves to use that LTS in 7 minutes based off the SOPs and the Trainual that I built.
So something that we talked about when you were here is like having, obviously writing the SOPs. And I think sometimes people realize they like are scared of writing the SOPs, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
how do
tough
I
to write out
jump
what your
in?
job is.
It's tough to write it out, but you have to start somewhere, and it can be as simple as a Google Doc or as intense as a QR code printed out on the press so that the press operators can scan.
Yeah,
Something
I
something
want to say real quick on this podcast, Steve. Kudos to you for labeling everything.
We're big
I love
labelers.
I love that shit.
We're big labelers. So something that you talked about is making training with me, making the training accessible. So writing it is one thing, but making it accessible and is another. What were ways that you made training accessible? Like what were
Videos.
the okay, videos, but like
Yeah.
take it a step further. How would an employee access them?
So at every station, generally there's a computer. Most companies now are using shared drives. Highly recommend getting into this decade and start utilizing that. I'm a big fan of iPads or computers at every single station for a reason. I developed spreadsheets and Google Docs, and I started using Trainual. Um, even Airtable, Trello, all these things can be really good for typing in something in a search bar. These guys, I set it up to where if you're running a tri-blend and you don't know what white to use, you type in tri-blend white, and it pulls open a little document of all of our white inks, what they're used for, what the cure temp is, what the best squeegee is. All that stuff is documented there. But I was a really big fan of training my phone. Like when I was in a department, I'd grab my cell phone and I would train it like it was an employee. I'm only doing the training once. And so they have access to that video any time they want. If they need to watch that video 3 or 4 times, that saves me from having to answer those questions 3 or 4 times. And so those videos, like in Trainable specifically, I make them step 1. Step 1 is to watch the video, and then step 2 is to go through all the steps to do that position.
So then I think even one thing you said was like the table that you're laying out at the end of the dryer, you had it covered in procedures.
Yeah, so I like the printed ones. So you laminate like your dryer table. There's even cheat sheets. I've seen it in several other shops. I always did it at mine, but how to count in 12s and 6s. So if you have 1 stack, it's 12 shirts, and 2 stacks is 24 shirts, and 3 stacks is 36. It's just really quick math, and I love to kill thinking because most general humans take a little bit longer to think than you need them to. I don't want bell catchers at the end of the day going like, what is 26 stacks of shirts? How many is that? I want them to look at a sheet and be like, boom, that's how many it should be.
That's super interesting. So literally a table laminated with just tables on how to count, how to fold, what boxes to use.
Industry standards.
Right.